You wake up to the soft light of morning filtering through the curtains. The kitchen smells faintly of freshly brewed coffee. As you reach for the fruit bowl, you spot it, bright, vibrant, perfectly ripe. You've been told for years that starting your day with fresh fruit is one of the healthiest choices you can make. But what if I told you that this very fruit, the one you've trusted for decades, could silently push you toward a stroke? Imagine this. You're sitting at the breakfast table, smiling as you slice into the juicy flesh, unaware that with every bite, you're raising your blood pressure and setting off a cascade of changes in your blood chemistry. Tiny platelets, the clotting agents in your bloodstream, begin to behave differently. Arteries that have already grown less elastic with age become more vulnerable to narrowing and blockage. You feel fine, maybe even great, but deep inside, the risk is building. And when it comes to stroke, there's no warning siren, no countdown clock. 1 minute you're sipping coffee, the next, your speech is slurred, your arm is numb, and your world has changed forever. As a brain doctor, I've seen this pattern too many times to dismiss it as coincidence. Seniors come to me after experiencing a mini stroke or a full-blown cerebrovascular accident, baffled because they live what they believe to be a healthy lifestyle. They don't smoke, they don't eat fast food, and every morning without fail, they enjoy their fruit. What they don't realize is that some fruits contain specific plant compounds that can raise blood pressure or interfere with how the body handles clotting. For an aging brain and circulatory system, those subtle changes can be catastrophic. And here's the surprising truth. The fruit I'm talking about isn't rare or exotic. It's on supermarket shelves everywhere. In fact, it's often recommended by wellness blogs, dietitians, and even some doctors. But what's safe for a 30-year-old with flexible arteries and a robust metabolism can be dangerous for someone in their 60s or 70s. Your body is different now. The way you process sugar, absorb nutrients, and regulate blood pressure has changed with age. And if you have underlying conditions like hypertension, diabetes, or atrial fibrillation, the danger is multiplied. Before we dive in, if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you hit that button and turn on the bell so you never miss another health tip made just for you. If you enjoy this video, type 1 in the comments. If not, type 0 to let me know how I can make better content for you. Today, I'm going to walk you through the 9 common foods that could be silently raising your risk of stroke, starting with the breakfast fruit you might have eaten this morning. By the end, you'll know exactly what to avoid, why it's risky, and what safer choices you can make to protect your brain and your life. As we get older, our blood vessels undergo changes that no one can entirely avoid. The walls of our arteries lose elasticity, a process called vascular stiffening. This is partly due to natural aging, but also influenced by decades of diet, lifestyle, and even environmental factors. When your arteries can't expand and contract easily, blood pressure tends to rise. Higher pressure, combined with a slower blood flow in certain areas, creates the perfect environment for blood clots to form. And those clots are the main culprits behind many strokes. Now, let's connect this to the breakfast fruit we're talking about. The culprit contains naturally occurring plant compounds that interact with enzymes in the liver, specifically the ones responsible for breaking down certain medications like blood pressure drugs, cholesterol-lowering statins, and even some anti-clotting agents. When these enzymes are inhibited, the medication's effect can change dramatically. In some cases, the drug becomes too potent, leading to dangerously low blood pressure. In others, it's the opposite. The medication's effect drops, blood pressure rises, and clot risk skyrockets. I once treated a patient named Margaret, age 71, who was fiercely committed to healthy eating. Every morning for over a decade, she started her day with half of this fruit, believing it was nature's medicine. She also took medication for mild hypertension. Over time, her blood pressure readings began to creep higher, despite medication adjustments. She felt occasional dizziness, but dismissed it as part of aging. One morning, she experienced sudden vision loss in one eye, followed by weakness in her right arm. She was rushed to the hospital, where tests revealed a clot in her brain's left hemisphere. A stroke. When we reviewed her diet, I noticed the fruit immediately. Lab work confirmed that her medication levels were inconsistent, fluctuating in ways that perfectly matched the known effects of this fruit's compounds on liver enzymes. Her healthy habit had been undermining her treatment for years. Why does this matter so much for seniors? Because as you age, your body's ability to metabolize both food and medication becomes less predictable. A young person's system might adjust easily to small changes in enzyme activity. But for someone in their 60s or 70s, especially with pre-existing heart or vascular conditions, even minor disruptions can push the balance toward danger. This is why understanding food-drug interactions is just as important as reading your prescription label. If you've been eating this fruit daily without issue, you might be tempted to think, well, it hasn't hurt me yet. But that's the trap. Stroke risk doesn't build like a headache or a sore throat. It can be invisible for years until one clot in one wrong place changes everything. And that's why I urge my patients, and you, to consider how even natural, wholesome foods might act differently inside an aging body. And if this surprised you, wait until you learn about how the very skin of this fruit hides an even more potent danger for your circulation. That's next. Mr. Harold was 68, a retired engineer with a meticulous daily routine. Every morning at exactly 7 a.m., he'd brew his coffee, read the paper, and eat a simple breakfast: a slice of whole grain toast, a boiled egg, and half of this bright, tangy fruit. He believed it was the perfect start to the day: balanced, light, and heart healthy. His blood pressure was a little high, as he put it, but under control with a low-dose medication. He had no history of heart disease and prided himself on never smoking. One winter morning, Harold's wife noticed he was moving slower than usual. His words came out slightly slurred, and he seemed confused about the date. They rushed to the hospital, where an MRI revealed a transient ischemic attack, a mini-stroke caused by a temporary blockage in the brain's blood vessels. While he recovered without lasting damage, the incident left him shaken. During our consultation, Harold was adamant that his diet couldn't be to blame. But when I asked him to walk me through his exact breakfast every day for years, the picture became clearer. The fruit he cherished was packed with compounds that, in his case, interfered with the way his liver processed his blood pressure medication. It wasn't that the fruit itself directly caused a stroke. It was that it tipped the balance just enough to allow his blood pressure to spike unpredictably. Those spikes, combined with aging arteries, made clot formation far more likely. We ran blood tests that confirmed the interaction. Harold's medication levels were inconsistent, sometimes higher than expected, sometimes lower, depending on how much of the fruit he'd eaten in recent days. His healthy habit had been sabotaging his stability without him realizing it. For seniors like Harold, these interactions can be especially dangerous because symptoms often appear too late. You may not feel your blood pressure rising. You might attribute mild headaches, dizziness, or blurred vision to fatigue or stress. But inside your vascular system, tiny injuries are forming on artery walls. Clots begin to develop in these roughened spots, and all it takes is one clot breaking free to block blood flow to the brain. Harold made a simple change, replacing the fruit with berries and kiwi in the morning, and within months, his blood pressure readings stabilized. He never had another stroke episode, but he often told me he wished he'd known years earlier. "It's not that I wouldn't have eaten it at all," he said, "but I never would have had it every single morning." So, what exactly in this fruit's peel and flesh is powerful enough to disrupt your circulation and your medication's effects? In the next section, I'll reveal the biochemical culprit and explain how even a small portion can have a surprisingly large impact on your health. When most people think about dangerous chemicals in food, they picture artificial additives, preservatives, or pesticide residues. But the compound at the center of this risk is completely natural. It's part of the fruit itself. In fact, it's what gives the fruit some of its refreshing bitterness. The name for this group of compounds is furanocoumarins. They're a type of plant defense chemical, naturally produced to deter insects and pests. While harmless for most young, healthy people, they can have profound effects on the way your body processes certain medications, especially in seniors. Here's the science in simple terms. Your liver contains enzymes. Think of them as processing machines that help break down and clear substances from your bloodstream. One of the key enzyme systems is called CYP3A4. It's involved in metabolizing a wide range of drugs, including blood pressure medications, statins, anti-clotting agents, and even some heart rhythm drugs. Furanocoumarins in this fruit can partially disable this enzyme for hours after you eat it. That means your medications either stay in your system much longer than intended, raising toxicity risks, or in some cases, they don't reach the right balance to be effective at all. I remember a patient named Claire, age 74, who was taking a calcium channel blocker for high blood pressure. She also loved making a fresh juice with this fruit every morning, skin and all. Within months, she began experiencing swelling in her ankles, pounding headaches, and sudden dizziness. When we tested her blood, her medication levels were more than double what they should have been, despite her taking the correct dose. The juice, rich in furanocoumarins from both the flesh and the peel, had been quietly disabling her liver's processing machines, letting the drug build up in her system. For seniors, this effect is magnified. As we age, liver function naturally slows, meaning drugs already process more slowly. Add a chemical that disrupts the enzyme system, and the results can be unpredictable, sometimes dangerously so. You might feel overly sedated, experience extreme drops or spikes in blood pressure, or suffer from heart rhythm changes. And because the effect of these compounds can last for up to 72 hours, you can't simply time your medication and fruit intake to avoid it. Even more concerning, studies have shown that the concentration of furanocoumarins can vary dramatically from one piece of fruit to another, depending on the variety, ripeness, and even the region where it was grown. That means you can't predict when the dose will be high enough to cause a serious interaction. This is why I tell my older patients, it's not about never touching this fruit again. It's about understanding the hidden risk and making informed choices. If you're on certain medications, the safest option is often to replace it with a fruit that won't interfere with your treatment. Next, we'll look at another surprising angle, how eating this fruit in the morning can trigger sudden blood pressure spikes, even in those without known medication interactions. For decades, doctors and dietitians have praised starting the day with fresh fruit. It's hydrating, full of vitamins, and naturally energizing. But for some seniors, eating this particular fruit first thing in the morning can set off a chain reaction that stresses the cardiovascular system, even if you aren't taking any medications it interacts with. Here's why. When you wake up, your body is in a fasting state. Blood sugar levels are lower, and your nervous system is shifting from the calm, rest and digest mode of sleep into the more alert, fight or flight mode of the day. This fruit, especially when eaten alone, delivers a rapid surge of natural sugars and certain organic acids. In younger people, the body can handle that spike easily. But in seniors, who often have reduced insulin sensitivity and less flexible blood vessels, this sudden influx can cause both a sharp rise in blood sugar and a reflexive constriction of blood vessels. That constriction, combined with the natural morning surge of blood pressure that occurs upon waking, can tip vulnerable individuals over the edge, pushing blood pressure into dangerously high ranges for a short period of time. It's during these brief spikes that the risk of clot formation or arterial rupture increases. I recall a patient named Albert, 66, who began experiencing intense headaches about 30 to 40 minutes after breakfast. At first, he blamed the coffee, but when he switched to decaf, the headaches persisted. We had him wear a continuous blood pressure monitor for a week, recording every meal. The results were startling. On mornings when he ate this fruit, his blood pressure spiked by as much as 25 points within the hour, then slowly came back down. On days without the fruit, his readings stayed much more stable. The cause wasn't a mystery. The sugars and acids in the fruit were triggering a surge in adrenaline, which constricted his arteries. For Albert, whose vessels were already stiff from decades of mild hypertension, this was enough to cause repeated micro-injuries to the arterial lining, the exact spots where dangerous clots often form later. If you've noticed headaches, flushing, or lightheadedness after certain breakfasts, it's worth paying attention to what's on your plate and in your fruit bowl. Even a food with undeniable health benefits for the general population can have unintended effects in the context of aging physiology. And as you'll see in the next story, sometimes these reactions are subtle, just enough to create nagging symptoms, until one day they reveal a much more serious underlying problem. Mrs. Evelyn was a 72-year-old retired teacher with a gentle manner and a love for morning routines. Every day at 6:30 a.m., she sat by her kitchen window, sipped her tea, and enjoyed a half portion of this bright, tangy fruit. She had mild hypertension, controlled with a low-dose beta blocker, and was otherwise healthy. Over the course of a year, she began experiencing dull, persistent headaches that always seemed to appear mid-morning. At first, she blamed eye strain from her crossword puzzles. Then she suspected her tea, so she switched to herbal blends. But the headaches continued, sometimes accompanied by a faint ringing in her ears and a feeling of pressure behind her eyes. When she came to see me, her blood pressure readings looked normal during the appointment, but something in her description made me suspicious. I suggested she monitor her blood pressure at home, taking readings before breakfast, 30 minutes after, and again at the 2-hour mark. The results told the story. On mornings with the fruit, her systolic pressure jumped by nearly 20 points within half an hour. A surge she never felt as pain or dizziness, just a gradual, dull pressure in her head. Combined with her medication, which was metabolized slightly slower due to the fruit's natural compounds, the fluctuations were putting unnecessary strain on her blood vessels. These repeated surges over months or years could damage the delicate inner lining of arteries, creating a perfect site for plaque buildup and clot formation. I explained that while her fruit habit seemed harmless, it was a quiet stressor on her circulation. We experimented with swapping her morning fruit for lower glycemic options like berries, pears, and half an avocado. Within 2 weeks, her mid-morning headaches had completely disappeared. More importantly, her home blood pressure readings became far more consistent. This is a common story I see in seniors. Subtle symptoms dismissed as normal aging often trace back to something as simple as a daily food choice. In Evelyn's case, the fruit wasn't poisonous or inherently bad, but it was mismatched to her body's needs at this stage of life. And the good news is, there are plenty of safer, brain-protective morning options that won't cause these sudden spikes. In the next section, we'll explore some of the best alternatives to keep your brain sharp, your circulation steady, and your risk of stroke low, without sacrificing taste or enjoyment. When I advise seniors to reduce or eliminate this fruit from their mornings, the immediate question is always, then what should I eat instead? Fortunately, there are many delicious, nutrient-rich alternatives that won't interfere with medications, spike blood pressure, or stress your circulation. The key is to focus on low glycemic, high antioxidant foods that deliver steady energy and support brain health. One of my top recommendations is blueberries. These small berries are rich in anthocyanins, plant compounds that help reduce inflammation, improve blood vessel function, and may even enhance memory. Unlike the problematic fruit we've been discussing, blueberries have minimal impact on medication metabolism and cause only a gentle rise in blood sugar. I had a patient, Maria 70, who swapped her daily grapefruit half for a handful of blueberries mixed into plain yogurt. Within weeks, she reported feeling more alert in the mornings and saw her blood pressure readings become more consistent. Another excellent choice is kiwi. Packed with vitamin C, potassium, and fiber, kiwi supports immune health and digestion while helping regulate sodium levels in the body, a bonus for those with high blood pressure. Plus, kiwi's natural sugars are released more slowly than the sharp rush you get from some citrus fruits. Avocados are also a powerful breakfast option. While they're not sweet, their healthy fats help keep you full and prevent the rapid blood sugar spikes that can lead to blood pressure surges. In fact, healthy monounsaturated fats are known to protect the brain's white matter and support long-term cognitive health. Pairing avocado slices with whole grain toast gives you a satisfying, balanced start to the day. For those who still crave a hint of citrus brightness, oranges or tangerines can be enjoyed in moderation, as they contain lower levels of the problematic compounds found in grapefruit. Always combine them with a source of protein or healthy fat, like a boiled egg or a handful of nuts, to slow sugar absorption and keep your energy steady. The transition away from a long-standing breakfast habit can feel strange at first, but I've seen remarkable benefits in my patients. One gentleman, Frank, 73, replaced his grapefruit with a mix of berries and walnuts each morning. Not only did his blood pressure stabilize, but his cholesterol profile improved, and he felt more energetic during his morning walks. You don't have to give up fresh, flavorful breakfast to protect your brain and circulation. You just need to choose fruits and pairings that work with your body, not against it. And as we'll discuss next, understanding the sugar content of fruit, even natural sugar, is key to making the smartest choices for your health. One of the most persistent myths I hear from seniors is, it's natural sugar, so it's healthy. While natural sugar from fruit is certainly better than refined white sugar or corn syrup, your body still processes it as glucose and fructose, and in high amounts, it can cause many of the same problems. For aging bodies, especially those with reduced insulin sensitivity, these sudden sugar loads can be harmful in ways that aren't immediately obvious. Here's the issue. When you eat a fruit with a high sugar concentration, your blood sugar rises rapidly. This triggers a release of insulin to help shuttle the sugar into your cells for energy. In younger people, that system works smoothly, but as we age, our muscle cells often respond less efficiently to insulin, meaning sugar lingers in the bloodstream longer. The pancreas responds by producing even more insulin, and over time, these repeated cycles contribute to chronic inflammation, weight gain, and higher cardiovascular risk. The fruit we've been discussing is especially tricky because it delivers sugar and compounds that can affect how your body handles medications. That double effect, metabolic strain and drug interaction, can quietly raise stroke risk over the years. I remember a patient, Mr. Takahashi, age 69, who came to me with concerns about fatigue and occasional dizziness. He was lean, active, and ate what he thought was an exemplary diet: oatmeal, green tea, and half a grapefruit every morning. But his blood work told another story: elevated fasting glucose, rising triglycerides, and signs of early insulin resistance. When we swapped his grapefruit for a mix of raspberries, chia seeds, and a sprinkle of cinnamon, his blood sugar readings improved within 3 months. He also reported more consistent energy throughout the day. This isn't about demonizing fruit. Many fruits, especially berries, apples, pears, and plums, offer fiber, antioxidants, and essential nutrients without overwhelming your system with sugar. The key is to choose those with a lower glycemic load and to pair them with protein or fat to slow absorption. Think of your blood vessels like the delicate wiring of a fine instrument. Every sugar spike, every blood pressure surge, is like a sudden jolt to that wiring. Over time, those jolts add up, wearing down the system and making it more prone to failure. By moderating sugar intake, even from natural sources, you reduce the stress on your arteries, your brain, and your heart. And as you'll see in the next section, sometimes the proof of these benefits comes from the most powerful source: the stories of people who make a change and see their lives transformed. Mr. Lee was 72 when he first came to see me. A retired postman, he prided himself on walking several miles each day, rain or shine. He was lean, cheerful, and had no major health complaints, just mild hypertension and slightly elevated cholesterol, both controlled with medication. Like many of my patients, he believed his breakfast routine was part of what kept him healthy: whole grain toast, a boiled egg, and half a grapefruit. He'd followed this routine for over 20 years. But during a routine checkup, I noticed something troubling. His blood pressure readings, taken over several months, were increasingly erratic. Normal one day, elevated the next. He also reported occasional lightheadedness when getting up quickly, which he attributed to just getting older. We ran some additional tests and found 2 issues. First, his liver enzyme activity was lower than expected, which meant his body was metabolizing his medications inconsistently. Second, his fasting blood sugar was creeping upward, indicating early insulin resistance. The common denominator? His daily grapefruit. I explained how the furanocoumarins in grapefruit could interfere with the breakdown of his medications, making their effects unpredictable. Combined with the fruit's sugar load, especially when eaten on an empty stomach, this was creating a perfect storm for fluctuating blood pressure and vascular stress. At first, Mr. Lee was skeptical. "It's just fruit," he said. "How could it be bad for me?" So we tried a simple experiment. For 2 months, he replaced his grapefruit with a combination of blueberries, walnuts, and half an avocado. We monitored his blood pressure daily and checked his lab work at the end of the trial. The results were undeniable. His blood pressure readings stabilized within the first 2 weeks. His fasting blood sugar dropped by 10 points, and his LDL cholesterol improved. Even more surprising to him, his energy levels were higher during his morning walks, and the occasional dizziness disappeared completely. Mr. Lee now shares his story with friends at the senior center, urging them to look beyond healthy labels and understand how foods interact with an aging body. "I thought I was doing everything right," he told me, "but I learned that sometimes What's healthy at 40 isn't healthy at 70. As we move into the final section, I want to bring together everything we've discussed, the risks, the science, the personal stories, and give you a clear, practical plan to protect your brain, your circulation, and your quality of life for years to come. If you take away only one message from this conversation, let it be this: the way your body interacts with food changes as you age. What once served you well in your 30s or 40s can, in your 60s and 70s, become a hidden threat. The common breakfast fruit we've discussed is not inherently bad, but for seniors, especially those on blood pressure, cholesterol, or heart medications, it can quietly raise the risk of stroke by altering how your body processes drugs and by triggering sudden spikes in blood pressure. We've seen how compounds like furanocoumarins can interfere with liver enzymes, disrupting the careful balance your medications are meant to maintain. We've looked at how sudden sugar surges, even from natural fruit, can stress stiffened arteries and aging vascular systems. And we've heard from real people, Harold, Evelyn, Maria, Frank, Mr. Takahashi, and Mr. Lee, whose lives were impacted in ways they never suspected until they made a change. The good news is, you have safer, brain-protective options. Here are some smart swaps that can give you flavor, nutrients, and energy without the hidden dangers. Blueberries, packed with antioxidants, they support brain function and stable circulation. Kiwi, high in vitamin C and potassium, with a gentle impact on blood sugar. Avocado, rich in healthy fats that steady blood sugar and protect brain health. Berries plus nuts combo combines antioxidants with protein and healthy fats for lasting energy. Oranges or tangerines, in moderation, lower in problematic compounds, pair with protein for best results. In addition to swapping fruits, follow these safer fruit consumption rules for seniors. Eat fruit earlier in the day when your body can process sugar more effectively. Pair fruit with protein or fat to slow absorption and avoid sharp blood sugar spikes. Rotate your choices so you're not overexposing your system to the same compounds daily. Be mindful of medication interactions. Ask your doctor or pharmacist about specific foods to avoid. Monitor how you feel after eating. Headaches, dizziness, or fatigue could be subtle warning signs. Remember, your goal is not just to avoid illness, but to protect your quality of life, your memory, mobility, and independence. Food can be your greatest ally or a hidden obstacle, depending on how well it matches your body's current needs. If you've recognized some of your own habits in today's discussion, take heart. Simple changes, like choosing the right breakfast fruit, can make a profound difference over time. You have the power to reduce your stroke risk, steady your circulation, and keep your brain sharper for longer. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment with 1. If not, feel free to comment with 0 point. Your feedback means a lot to us. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And most importantly, take control of your health with the knowledge you've gained today.